advised that the views and opinions of the hosts and guests do not reflect those of the station.
As BCDA celebrates its 15th year, we celebrate nation building, development, and growth. In 1992, President Corazon Juanco Aquino signed the Basis Conversion and Development Act, establishing the Basis Conversion and Development Authority. Its mandate: to convert Clark Air Base, Camp John Hay, Wallace Air Station, and the former Philippine Refugee Processing Center, as well as some military camps in Metro Manila, and use them as engines of social and economic development for the nation. BCDA rose to the challenge, revitalizing Subic and Clark as centers of new growth, bringing opportunities for income and livelihood, zeroing in on the development of Central Luzon. A major accomplishment of BCDA is the Subic-Clark-Tarlac Expressway, the country's longest and most modern road at almost 94 kilometers. It was designed to connect 3 special economic zones for the fast delivery of goods and services across Central Luzon to Manila and the rest of the world.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Philippines Uncut. I am your host, Buddy Kunanan. Now, in this show, we talk about everything under the sun, and tonight's show is about business. And you will learn about a government agency called the Basis Conversion Development Authority, or BCDA, and also be illuminated about certain issues regarding BCDA and the current controversy with SM Aura, the newest SM mall of the country, and also Camp John Hay up in Baguio City, the summer capital of the Philippines. And we're fortunate tonight to have with us on the show the President and CEO of BCDA, no less than Attorney Arnel Casanova. Attorney Casanova, good evening. Welcome to Philippines Uncut.
Good evening, buddy. Thanks for having me here.
No, pleasure is mine, Attorney. And this topic is currently creating a lot of brouhaha. And taking this opportunity to explain exactly what BCDA is, and a lot of people watching us probably are wondering what this agency is about. But before we go into BCDA, let's talk about you. Tell us about your background, Attorney.
Yeah. Well, I'm actually a Batangueño, you know. I grew up in the province. It's a small town called Padre Garcia, Batangas. It's the center of livestock market in the Philippines. And well, I went to UP for my undergraduate degree, where I earned also 3 degrees: English and urban planning and law.
Wow.
So
okay.
Yeah, I came from a modest family, and so I always I was a working student when I was in UP, and I was a scholar at that time. Yeah.
And then upon graduation from law school, I understand that you have been with BCDA.
Yes.
BCDA has been your home.
Yes.
Ever since after you entered the workforce.
Yes. Even when I was still a senior in law school, I entered BCDA since 1998, and I rose from the ranks. So I used to joke that I'm the youngest CEO in the history of the BCDA, but the oldest in the job.
Yes, because a lot of people appointed to leadership positions in BCDA are political appointees, but
Yes.
you are actually career BCDA,
yes,
except for, I understand you also had a short stint outside BCDA with
Yes.
a foundation called the Asia Society.
Yes. Well, I left in 2009 to join an international organization called Asia Society. This is one of those Rockefeller organizations tasked to bridge understanding between U.S. and Asia and among Asian countries themselves. So they're involved in diplomacy, business, and culture, actually. and it opened my eyes to the global community.
Were you based here for the Asia Society or
Yes,
overseas?
I was the head of the Philippine office, but I usually report to New York, where our office is. It's along Park Avenue and 72nd Street, right beside Central Park.
And what brought you back to BCD after this this short stint away?
Yes, well, I guess it's my faith in President Aquino. President Aquino's heart is really sincere in helping the country, and I felt that when I was offered a job, well, I had second thoughts of going back to the government, but then I realized how important it is that we have to support President Aquino's initiatives to really create change in the country. And now I think it's reaping generous fruits of our labor.
Definitely, and the daang matuwid of President Aquino is
Yes,
something
yes.
that we all should really imbibe in our lives and something we should push for in government.
Yes, yes.
Definitely.
Yes, actually, people like us who are young and who've been educated in the best educational institutions in the Philippines and abroad, we want to contribute to the country. And joining the public service would be a very, very tangible and important contribution.
Excellent, excellent. Attorney Casanova, let's talk about BCDA. Let's define it for our viewers. What is BCDA and what is its purpose, its mission, vision?
Yes, well, if you would recall, and just to give you a brief historical context, when the Philippines was a nascent democracy in 1986, we had a series of coup d'etat, which isolated the Philippines from global investment community. And then in 1918, after the bloodiest coup d'etat, we had the Baguio earthquake, which devastated northern Luzon. And then a year after that, the Mount Pinatubo eruption, and also the dislocation of the base workers in the U.S. Military bases.
Because of the pullout of the Americans.
So you had the economy in shambles. You have devastated infrastructure. The country is in complete, almost in chaos because of these problems. And BCDA was created to address some of these problems, and because we needed to generate funds to rehabilitate Central and Northern Luzon. So we decided to, President Cory decided to privatize the Fort Bonifacio to raise the funds, and the process of which went to the AFP modernization, and also a part of that went to the rehabilitation of Central and Northern Luzon. That's why we're able to clear and rehabilitate Subic, Clark, Poro Point, and John Hay. And then in Fort Bonifacio, we were able to move the operating units of the military, which has always threatened the civilian authority, to Tanay now. And we were able to contribute, as of this time, about 24 billion to the AFP modernization.
Since the inception of the BCDA, the agency has contributed 24 billion to AFP modernization. How about police? Is there any funds? Because once upon a time, PC was part of Philippine Constabulary. Do any of the funds go to the PNP?
They're about 1% of the proceeds.
1%?
Goes to the, but because mainly because this is a Fort Bonifacio, these are military camps.
Of course.
So there's a need to really modernize our armed forces, and the current events that are happening now actually demands that we support this modernization much more stronger than before.
Now, Attorney, example, you mentioned Fort Bonifacio. This is an army, the home of the Philippine Army. Does it mean that if you privatize portions of Fort Bonifacio, that majority of these funds will go to the army? Does it follow, or is it spread out to the entire AFP and basically from there it depends on where the funds will go, Army, Navy, Air Force. What is the policy?
Well, that's a very good question, because that has always been a cause of confusion for our public and even for the military, because the task of BCDA is actually just to raise funds. Once we raise the funds and remitted it to the Treasury, we have no role anymore in how it's being divided or how it's being disbursed.
That's right, Department of Defense.
So the task of allocating the proceeds would now fall on the Department of Defense and the Chief of Staff, the Armed Forces, and the DBM. So we generate the funds, and they're the ones who disburse it. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. You talked about baselands, and how many properties are we talking about here nationwide?
Oh, well, currently we have about 41,500 hectares of property.
Wow, that's a lot.
That's very big, yeah.
Still, this is remaining.
Yes.
41,500 hectares.
Yes, Clark alone
Huge.
is about 35,000 hectares. And then we have 600 hectares in John Hay, another about 300 hectares in Poro Point. Then we have another 600 hectares in Bataan. We are not even including Subic, which is under SBMA.
Okay,
So,
you mentioned Clark, but isn't that under Clark Development Corporation already, CDC?
yes, CDC is a 100% owned subsidiary of BCDA.
Okay.
So to
okay.
develop, BCDA is an economic catalyst. We are the prime mover of national development.
Yeah.
So because we are, our property is located in different parts of the country, and we created subsidiaries to manage these properties. So in Clark, we have two subsidiaries, the
Okay.
Clark Development Corporation,
In the airport.
yeah, and whose task is to develop the Freeport, and the Clark International Airport Corporation, whose task is to develop the Clark International Airport. So in the
Okay.
same way, we did a John Hay Management Corporation in John Hay, and Poro Point Management Corporation in Poro Point, La Union.
Now, how is the setup with BCDA and Clark? How is this different from the setup between BCDA and SBMA in Subic?
Oh, well, thank you for the question.
Yes, because I'm,
Yes,
I'll tell you,
yes,
attorney.
yes.
My first job out of college was actually with CDC.
Ah, great.
So I,
Yeah,
I know
well,
Clark Development Corporation
So you're
very
part
well.
of the BCDA family.
Well, in a way, in a way.
Yes, yes.
But I never knew that we were somehow different from SBMA. That's why I want to ask you now. Yeah.
Well, SBMA is a separate authority, although under Republic Act 7227, BCDA is an oversight function over them. But it's a separate authority, so they're much more autonomous than CDC with BCDA, because CDC is an implementing arm of BCDA.
BCDA, yes.
And it's wholly owned, all the equities of CDC belongs to BCDA. So
How come it happened like that? How come the situation in Subic is different or was different from the situation in Clark? When I mean, logic would tell you that it should be the same,
yeah.
because I mean they have the same nature, the same background, the same.
Yeah.
How
well,
come?
the original idea is actually just to have one basis conversion development authority.
Sure.
But at that time, I think the circumstances demand, and through the lobby of Mayor Dick Gordon at that time, is now as a former senator.
Yes, yes.
Well, I mean, I think Mayor Dick Gordon at that time was so passionate about, bringing Subic alive again, SBM again. So he took it upon himself that, to be able to sustain and to rehabilitate Subic.
Have control really
he
of
has
this
to have-
area.
yeah, he has
I
to
see
have
where
the
you're going
control
with
of
that.
area. So that's why it was carved out of the entire basis. Well, not really carved out entirely in a matter of master plan, but just an authority. So he wanted to have full control, and he was able to actually mobilize volunteers to resurrect the Subic Bay Freeport. So.
Okay. So at present, what properties, what areas are BCDA still trying to develop? I mean, you mentioned a handful, but in Metro Manila, let's say,
Oh yes, we still
is
have
there still
a
a
lot.
lot here in Metro Manila? Which ones?
Well, we have substantial land holdings in the marine area, Marines, where the Philippine Marines are located. So we call it the Bonifacio South
Okay.
Point property, which we actually published for bidding last January. But unfortunately, SM filed a case to secure a temporary restraining order preventing us from bidding the property. Well, they were claiming that there has been a negotiated deal already without property.
This is the Marine Bonifacio Naval Station.
Yes.
This is, as you said, Fort Bonifacio South.
Yes,
So this is completely different from the SM Aura.
Different.
Or a
yeah,
property.
This is different. So we have two issues with SM.
Two issues with SM.
Yeah,
Okay,
and the
there you
first
go.
one was that.
Yeah.
Because the offer of in May of 2010, about May 4 of 2010,
Yeah.
that's the election time, a few days before the election, SM submitted a unsolicited proposal to BCDA for a negotiated deal on that property.
The Marine
property.
yeah.
So they offered like maybe, 36,900 per square meter. And I think it was accepted by the board of BCDA a few days after the election. But
Okay, so favorable to SM.
yeah, favorable to SM, but but it's a negotiated
Yeah.
deal. So when the President Aquino assumed the presidency, he put a stop to the process because there's no just to be very clear about it, there's no contract yet with SM about that deal.
Yeah.
The process is that for an unsolicited proposal, you have to have a Swiss challenge. So you have to actually offer it to the public to better the offer, and SM would have the right to match.
Okay.
So, but the president, through the Daang Matuwid policy, decided that really to create better value for the government, and for the AFP, because the AFP is actually the direct beneficiary of this,
Open to bidding.
over the bidding. So yeah,
Yes.
the president said we just have to bid it out,
Of course.
and to create the best value so that you
Get competition, get other people
competition,
to
yes.
bid for it. Of
That's
course.
right. And based on our experience in FTI bidding, in fact, the FTI was initially a negotiated deal also with the Ayalas, and the price there was about 14,000 per square meter.
Now, FTI also falls under BCDA.
No. But it shows how the fair market value of the properties are if you bid them
Yes,
out.
okay.
If you put it in a fair and level playing field, you get the best value for the government.
Maximize value.
Yes.
FTI is Department of Agriculture, no?
No, yes, but the
it
one
is.
who privatized it is the Department of Finance.
Finance, okay.
Yes.
But attorney, before our viewers get confused, because now there's another issue with SM, let's talk about the main issue, which is the SM Aura
yes.
property. Okay. Tell us about the background first of why that property, which used to be Fort Bonifacio land, is now actually BCDA property. Why is that?
Yes. Well, in the master plan of Fort Bonifacio, and even in the law creating BCDA, it requires a retention of about 40 hectares of property to be utilized as national and local government centers, sports facilities, and parks. Those are the 4 uses: national and local government centers, sports facilities, and parks.
Okay.
So, well, it was the land was demanded by Taguig to be given to them to be utilized as a civic center where the city hall would be built.
Okay, clarification, attorney. So you said 40 hectares out of the entire Fort Bonifacio
Yes.
was reserved for you, as you said, sports facilities, parks,
parks,
and
yeah.
national
And local government centers.
local government centers. Okay, and of this 40%, what did BCD? I mean, how does the city of Taguig now come into play with this 40 hectares?
Yes. Well, they requested from BCDA to give them 33 of that.
Okay.
So, specifically the area where SM Aura is now located.
How big is the area?
That's about approximately 5 hectares.
Okay.
5 hectares. So, we gave it to them to be used as city hall and parks and sports facilities and government centers.
It is very clear.
Very clear.
Yes.
It's very clear in the law. That's why
Republic Act, what is that? Republic Act?
Republic Act 7917.
7917.
Yes.
Okay.
The reason is, in a city like that, you have to have open spaces.
course.
Like New York, for example, Central Park is a very prime property, but you can't touch that for commercial use because you need a breathing space, an
Absolutely.
open space for
Absolutely.
cities like that.
For
And
sure.
that's the idea behind that. And it also makes sense for us to give it to Taguig as to be used as city hall and government center because right in the heart of business, you also need government services
Of course.
to serve
of course.
to serve the business,
The commercial needs of the
definitely.
establishments. of
getting
course.
permits, of paying their taxes and everything.
At the moment, it's so difficult because you have to go into Taguig really.
Precisely,
To
yeah.
get, as you said, permits and to
Permits,
pay taxes
yes,
and
yes,
stuff. So
yes,
it makes sense.
Yes.
Okay.
So, but unfortunately, when we convey the property to them, we were not aware that they had plans of giving it to SM to be used for commercial purposes.
When was this conveyed or given to Taguig? In what year is this?
In 2008.
2008.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you were unaware. So what happened? You gave BCDA gave the property to Taguig.
Yes.
And what did Taguig do after that?
Well, according to them, we were not privy to this because we were not really aware of what happened. According to them, they bidded the property out, and SM came out as a winner to lease the property to be used as a, even the lease agreement speaks of a civic center. So even the Taguig and SM lease agreement speaks of a civic center. So based on the documents, they are actually reinforcing our position that it's really a civic center.
Was there actually a bid that took place?
I don't know.
Because I mean, if you have a bid, it's public.
It should be, yeah.
And you would assume that big player. I mean, it's a prime piece of real estate. You would
Yeah.
accept big players would be interested.
I would assume that, but unfortunately, I have no information. We were caught surprised with that. Yeah.
Okay.
So and then in 2009, we had rumors that it's going to be a mall. So, but we have no way of confirming it. So, in 2009, SM filed an application for building permit with Bonifacio Estate Services Corporation.
Okay. What is that?
Yes. This corporation represents all the landowners and developers in the entire global city,
Okay.
whose task is to impose the design guidelines and restrictions for the city. There must be someone who would regulate the developments. Otherwise, an uncontrolled development will also mess the entire.
Of course.
Yeah.
Who is involved in the Bonifacio Estates?
These are it has a board
Okay.
who's representing all the landowners in the Bonifacio Global City. So it would be BCDA,
Okay.
the FBDC,
Okay.
which is joint venture of BCDA and Ayala Corporation and Butch and Evergreen Holdings,
Okay.
and the other landowners who are like Net Group,
Okay.
Charlie
Okay.
Rufino,
Okay.
and other landowners.
Okay.
So it's not only BCDA or Ayala;
Okay.
it's the entire landowners,
Okay.
and because they have a stake in the development of the city and the imposition of restrictions and easements. So and that the restriction on the land use is in that SM Aura thing. It should be an institutional use.
Why was there a need for Bonifacio Estates Corporation? Why not just have BCDA? I mean, this is effectively the arm of BCDA to somehow oversee.
No, it's not only BCDA is only one
But-
of the landowners.
But I mean, what is the setup? I mean, is there majority ownership of one of this company, or is it equal? I mean, what is the corporate
It depends
setup?
on the percentage of your ownership of the city.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
got it.
How big is your
Okay,
your
okay.
ownership of the
Okay,
city?
okay.
Yeah. So it's not only BCDA or Ayala. You have people like the Net Group also
Yeah.
of Charlie Rufino.
Yeah.
So that's the thing, you know. So
So a private entity basically having supervision of the development
of the city.
of the global city.
Yeah.
Okay, so continue after that.
Well, after that, they were denied because it appears on our application that it's going to be a mall.
Okay.
So the Bonifacio Estate Service Corporation said you are violating Republic Act 7917 and also the design guidelines and restrictions of the city, the master plan. Instead of complying, SM went to Taguig and get the building permit. So it was the City Hall who gave them the permit.
So this is in 2009.
Yes.
So
that's right.
Bonifacio Estate Services Corporation denied their building permit, and they went to Taguig to get. But see, attorney, the problem is where does jurisdiction start? Because of course it seems like it overlaps. You have, of course, BCDA and the other owners, landowners, represented in the Bonifacio Estate Services Corporation. But you also have Taguig, which the global city is in Taguig. So
Yes.
which takes precedence? Which is
Well, of course,
Is it a
it's
gray area?
The local government has the power to determine the land use.
Okay.
But you know, a well-meaning local government would actually strengthen and reinforce the master plan, because that's how a city becomes sustainable. If you allow an unplanned development, the entire city would deteriorate. So
at the moment in the global city, anyone who wants to build anything has to get clearance from the Bonifacio Estate
yeah.
Services Corporation.
yes.
Now, how does this corporation now? What is its relationship with the city of Taguig? Because does it mean that after you get a permit from this corporation, you have to get still from the city of Taguig?
Yeah, because it's like a deputy of Taguig when it comes to the enforcement of the zoning ordinance. Because the master plan was also approved by the Taguig City Council. But in this case, in SM Aura, I think they made an exception to revise their prior approval and classify that land as a mixed-use lot.
Yes,
So
yes.
instead of an institutional, they converted it into a mixed-use property. So it's allowed now SM to build this mall.
Okay.
So, but normally, if you are if the reason why you apply to the Bonifacio Estate Services Corporation is because you want to be part of the entire community of the Bonifacio Global City, because this is a community, BESC is a representative of everyone,
Of
all
course.
stakeholders.
Of course, of course.
So, yeah.
Interesting, interesting. Attorney, we have to pause for a break.
Yes.
But more questions
Yes,
definitely
yes.
for me about SM Aura and the
Absolutely,
BCDA when Philippines Uncut returns. Stay tuned.
Thank you.
You know, Attorney, Kunana, and tonight's topic is the BCDA and the rule of law, and especially in regard to the current controversy over the SM Aura Mall in Taguig City. Now, my guest tonight is Arnel Casanova, and he's the President and CEO of the Basis Conversion Development Authority. And welcome back, Attorney Casanova, to our second segment. Now, Attorney, just to sum up, okay, so for our viewers, SM Group, okay, applied for a permit to construct,
Yes.
but with an entity called Bonifacio Estate Services Corporation, private entity composed of all the landowners in
Bonifacio Global
City. Isa na rin dun yung BCDA.
Yes, yes.
Now, it was denied, and then from here, they went now to the Taguig City Hall and applied for a permit, and they were granted
They were
a
granted,
permit.
yeah.
Now, okay, I was talking to you earlier about the relationship between Bonifacio Estate Services Corporation and Taguig City Hall, and you know, it seems that in the weight of things, right? In the weight of things, the approval of City Hall would be heavier, or would have greater weight than the approval of the Bonifacio Estate Services Corporation, very long name, which is essentially a private entity, right? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes,
What are your
yes.
comments on that,
Yeah,
attorney?
Well, I think there must be a distinction because Taguig is coming in two roles here. One is the regulator of land uses in the city, which under the local government code, they really have the power to classify land and based on a zoning ordinance. And the second is a donee, a recipient of a donation.
The land, the 5 hectares, composed of the 33 hectares
yes.
that you guys, BCDA, gave
Yes.
to them
Yes,
in
yes.
2008.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So in terms of land uses, they may probably reclassify land uses. That's true. That's their power. But as a donee, as a recipient of a donation, they must comply with the conditions for the donation.
Yes.
So those two roles of Taguig must be distinguished. So yes, they may have the power to do that, to reclassify lands, but they cannot violate the
original conditions,
conditions
of the donation.
Yes, yes. And also, because the donation itself speaks clearly that they should comply with Republic Act 7917, which is to utilize the land for national and local government centers, sports facilities, and parks. So, and we are expecting that the local government unit, being a government entity itself, must uphold the rule of law in the same way that we are expected to do that.
Are you saying now that the Taguig City government, in granting a permit, that clearly the purpose was not included in the original condition of the donation, which is sports civic center,
sports facilities
and park, etc., etc. Are you saying now that it engaged in an illegal transaction with SM? Was that transaction illegal?
Well, based on the facts that are existing now, it appears, and there's no doubt now that it's a mall. Everyone now looks at it as really a mall. It's a public knowledge now. So it's really a clear violation of the Republic Act 7917
Yes.
and the deed of restriction and the deed of conveyance that we convey the land to them.
Yes. Now, attorney, a lot of people watching are probably wondering the same as I, that, okay, why didn't you guys act earlier? Like example, okay, I'm a
Yes.
private citizen and I actually drive on C5
Yes, yes.
to the Kagitingan driving range where
Yes, yes,
I hit balls to relieve
Yeah, yeah,
stress.
yeah,
Anyway,
yes.
I passed that property good for the past 2 years. And,
Yes.
you know, and even my friends in the area, we all knew that, we all had an inkling. People were saying that this is going to be a mall.
Yeah.
So how come BCD, I mean, people like me, private citizen,
Yeah.
had an idea already that this was going to be a mall. And people were talking about it.
Yeah.
How come BCDA didn't act earlier, like maybe TRO or, I mean, you know.
No, actually we did. As I
Okay.
said, as early as 2009,
Okay.
the application for the building permit was actually denied by BESC. And in 2011,
Okay.
we even wrote a letter to them reiterating the restriction, and that letter is upon that letter is attached the Office of Government Corporate Counsel's opinion, saying that the restriction still stands. However, legally, we cannot yet prove that it's really a mall.
Until it really
operates
yes,
as a mall.
true.
Because you see, it's just a building. All of us,
True,
all
true.
of us have been hearing
True.
rumors.
True,
But
true.
officially, we wrote them, and that's why last month before the opening, I wrote a letter to Hansi to try to confirm whether it's a mall or is it a civic center.
And what was the response from
The
Mr.
response
C?
was a forcible occupation of BCDA Road, the McKinley Parkway, which is now the feature. I think there's a YouTube video.
What is this McKinley Parkway? What is
McKinley
this?
Parkway is
Yeah.
the road right in front of the SM Aura Mall.
Okay, okay,
And it's a unfinished road.
okay.
In May 6, SM, together with Taguig Police and traffic personnel, dismantled forcibly the fence that BCDA put there for the safety of the public. The reason why it's closed is it's unfinished. That road has never been opened. So it's not true that we are blockading that road. In the first place, that road has never been opened.
Okay.
Because it's unfinished.
Okay, attorney. So your issues with SM, aside from the fact that they weren't supposed to build there, and they got this permit from the city of Taguig, issued them a permit which was questionable. One of your issues is actually the safety of the
Yes,
area.
the
Now I understand we have some photos that you supplied us about
Yes.
with the retaining wall
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the parkway. So can we have those photos, please?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is this, attorney?
Yeah, those are the fence of BCDA that was removed forcibly
Okay.
without authority. You take a look at those.
What is this? This is part of the barricade that BCDA put on the McKinley Parkway.
McKinley Parkway,
Okay.
for the safety of the public, so that they won't enter that area.
Okay.
So those are the concrete barriers which
Okay.
they removed also, and those are the excavations that they did. That land is BCDA land, even up to now. It's not part of the donation. So that road is BCDA.
And they're already doing something there.
So they trespassed on
BCDA property. Okay.
So and now you see those equipment.
Yeah.
It's digging a paved road already. So they are actually destroying what has already been built by BCDA.
Yeah.
And you see that.
This is still the same road. This is
yes, it's still the same
parkway.
road. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And this one is, you see that
What is
retaining
this?
wall.
On the lower right-hand portion of the
The
screen.
lower right hand is a
Okay.
community of people, formal settlers.
Yes.
So, and that's the road which is being protected. The slope of the road is being protected by a very, very thin wall.
That is the retaining wall.
And that's not actually, a temporary retaining wall, but you cannot open the road with that kind of protection, because if you put pressure on the road,
it will
collapse and will bury the families living under the road.
Yes,
So
yes, very
we
precarious.
were saying that we cannot build on it yet until a retaining wall is built for the safety of the residents living under that road.
Wow. No, I've seen those communities. As I
Yes.
told, driving past on
Yes,
C5,
yes,
you can see the, as you said, the
Yes.
informal settlers.
Yes.
Yes.
So yeah. So there's not only a legal issue here, because the road and the lot is owned by BCDA.
And they're already doing something. They're constructing, they're building, and we shouldn't be done because it is
Yes.
your property.
Yes.
Okay. There's a safety aspect.
Yeah, and there's a safety aspect. Why would you now rush the construction of a road on an unsafe methodology and put in danger and risk the lives of people living underneath that road? So it's not only a legal issue; it's a moral issue. And are you going to risk those people?
Well, I can see why SM is really gung-ho about doing that, because that really is the only access to their. Well, that's not your problem. I mean, that's their problem.
Yes.
But it really is the only decent access to the SM Aura Mall. I have driven past there once or twice since the opening, so just to see what it really was about, the whole issue.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, are you guys planning to take legal action against Taguig? Because it really, from a lay person's point of view, it seems that the Taguig City Hall really erred in this. Because anyone can apply for a permit, but why did they grant it, knowing full well the conditions of the donation to them by BCD? Are you guys planning to take some legal action against Taguig?
Yes, we're actually we have opposed the injunction that they have filed against us to allow SM to build on our own road. So currently they're doing it. So I just want to put the public that if something happens there and someone dies because the road collapsed, then it's not a BCD's fault. We were forced by the court to allow SM and Taguig to build on that road. So and you know, it's also in the heart of this. The reason why we're raising this issue is because our concern with the armed forces. You know, it's a Fort Bonifacio land. And the law dictates that any commercial disposition of Fort Bonifacio land should redound to the benefit of the armed forces. We are doing this not for Ayala, not for our own corporations, but for our soldiers. You know, our soldiers needed badly that modernization fund. And if you're going to commercially use the property, then our armed forces, our soldiers who are dying in the field, must be equipped with the right resources that their land, the revenues of the land, should generate for them.
At this moment, there's not a single centavo from this deal went to the AFP. Not a single centavo.
I want every single soldier in the country to ask if the armed forces is benefiting from that deal. No, not even a single cent. So it's our duty as steward of this military land to pursue it, because we believe that if you're going to utilize it commercially, then it's our soldiers who should benefit from it.
Yes, yes.
So it's right at the heart of it. We are stewards only. We do not own that land. We are stewards of the military lands that are being commercially used that should go to the armed forces.
Yes.
So especially now that, you know, our soldiers have a lot of challenges. You have external security threats, and then you have even internal security threats with the deaths of 7 Marines in Patikul. They must be provided the necessary resources, equipment, and training, but we need the funds. So
and this will come from deals like this.
Yes,
should come.
Yeah. So can you imagine, how can we justify if a lowly soldier coming from Patikul, coming from a combat, and who lost some of his men, would ask me, oh, that's a very big mall, and it's generating billions of pesos in revenues. Is the armed forces benefiting or receiving a cent from it?
Nothing.
And I would say, I'm sorry, you're not receiving not a single cent.
Nothing. Attorney, what is your comment to some allegations? Some of my newspaper friends in their columns have alleged that, oh, this is a proxy battle between, I'll mention them, okay? Between the SM group and the Ayala group, and they go so far to say that, oh, once upon a time, the Cs were renting from the Ayalas now, they're surpassing them. What are your comments about things like this, talk like this?
You know, this is an attempt to reduce the issue to a corporate squabble issue. We have nothing to do with it. We are government. Our task is to uphold the rule of law, create a fair and level playing field, and as stewards of government military lands to provide the resources needed that would be generated from the commercial utilization of these lands, provided under Republic Act 7227 and 7917. So any attempt to reduce this issue to a simple corporate squabble is doing disservice to the country. We cannot have a corporation that would act with impunity, you know, forcibly enter government property, remove the barricades, and even endanger public safety, you know, and deprive our soldiers what is due them.
Yes, yes. What do you think? How do you think this will all play out, Attorney? I mean, now, okay, fine. We have seen that apparently there are the building of this mall is questionable, but now the structure is there.
Yes.
They have occupancy.
Yes.
They're operating already. It is
Yes,
operating
yes,
as a
yes.
mall. What can be done? What do you expect from your complaint, or what do you reasonably expect to happen from your complaint against this action?
Well, I think, as I said, we are after the interest of the armed forces. We are their stewards. So their interests must be amply protected. Now, the fact is, yes, the mall is already there, and it's being a commercial use as against the institutional originally intended. Now, what we're saying is, to comply with the law, then if you're going to use it commercially, then under the law, you must give the proceeds to BCDA, and BCDA gives it to the armed forces.
Which proceeds are you talking about?
Coming from the utilization of the land. So probably Taguig could pay for the land, and then and so that BCDA could now say to the armed forces, well, it's Taguig who bought the land. So instead of a free donation, where the armed forces would not earn anything.
Okay.
Just to put in a proper perspective within the legal framework,
Yeah.
so that it would comply with the law, we'll say, okay, since you use it commercially, then let's treat it commercially.
Yes.
You give the government what is due it, pay BCDA the amount of the land, so that we could now justify to our armed forces that their land has been sold, and then we're going to put the money to the modernization.
Now, Attorney, is that kind of compromise deal possible given the original conditions of the donation? Is it still possible to modify that or amend that if all parties concur? I mean, is that possible?
Yeah. It's legally feasible actually, because the task of BCD is actually to privatize this military land.
Okay.
So now, if we will violate that mandate if we give the land for free. Because our primary task,
which is what happened essentially when you conveyed it
precisely
to Taguig.
and because because there's a condition that it should be used for institutional, not commercial use.
Yes.
So which the law demands.
Yes,
So
yes.
now since you had treated it as a commercial transaction, then let's do it as a commercial transaction so that SM would come out and operate their business unimpeded, but the government and our armed forces are properly and amply protected, so that they will receive the proceeds that they should receive from the commercial transaction.
Yes. So like this is really a win-win
It's a win-win
option.
situation.
So what Taguig can do, as you said, they can buy the land
Yes,
from
yes.
BCDA, so BCDA receives its share, and
Yeah.
then this will now go to
The armed forces of the
AFP
Philippines.
modernization.
Yes.
Now, are you optimistic that such a deal can be reached, and how soon do you think
well, I
this
hope-
kind of deal would happen?
If we are all reasonable people, and we are just stewards, this is not for our own personal benefit. This is for the benefit of our armed forces. So, and I think as long as the law is being followed, and compliance to the regulations are being made, then I think we can resolve this. We don't have to always fight about this.
Of course.
But it's really, really important as government entity that we uphold the rule of law and create a fair and level playing field for all businesses. The corporate squabbles are, for these private corporations to compete with each other. But what's important for us as government is to create the level playing field where all these players would now compete with each other.
Yes.
And create the best value for our government.
And it sends a good signal to foreign investors.
Precisely.
Because, I mean, this whole stink with what happened with this supposed illegal
Yes.
construction of this mall, what signal does it give to foreign investors? Like,
Yes.
you have this, and SM really inaugurated this mall with a big splash.
Yes.
And then news came out after that, hey, it is questionable.
Yes,
so,
yes.
right?
Yeah. Well, business, we will be able to sustain our economic growth on a sustainable on a sustained basis if we will be able we're able to uphold the rule of law, because the rule of law provides a fair and level playing field.
For sure.
Whether you're big or you're small, as long as you on your merits, the law will weigh you based on your capability to compete in the business.
This is another question, because now that you're talking to me, and I'm not a lawyer, I'm a layperson. I understand it now. I understand now very clearly what the issue was, what the issue is, and then what the problem was. It's strange that the city government of Taguig back then, I'm sure there are a lot of smart guys there as well. Why didn't they come up with this option in the first place? So that it's clear from the start and there's no problem, and that all of this could have been avoided. Had they just approached the BCDA probably and say, and like with a win-win solution, tell you we'll buy it from you guys, and we'll lease it to SM because this is our plan.
Well, your guess is as good as mine. I cannot speculate, but I wish it should have been done.
Yes.
In fact, it took a while for BCDA to actually act, because we were having dialogues with them. We were saying, let's comply with the civic center use.
But as you said, until they really open the mall, it's impossible to know.
Yes.
And legally, what can you do? Because there's no way to prove that it will be a mall,
it will
right?
be a mall,
Until
yeah.
they finally really open.
Yes, and which we did. Once we got information and they started advertising that's going to be a mall, and then that's the time we raised this issue.
even your actions are really rule of law. You really followed things by the book, did things by the book.
Yes, because we're government, and we want to sustain that, the good governance. That every government should behave in the same way business should behave. So everyone should have that kind of transparent and ethical actions whenever we do business. And since we deal with a lot of businesses, we welcome partnerships with all of them. BCDA is not only a market player; we are the market.
Yes.
Because of the land holdings that we have and the capability that we have. It's the companies, private sector coming to us to partner with us. So we welcome partnerships with all of them. But to do that, we must be able to treat all of them fairly.
Of course, very
based
good.
on their own merits.
Very good. Attorney, BCDA's plans for the future, what are the big projects in the pipeline that we can look forward to?
Well, immediately we were disposing the remaining land in Fort Bonifacio.
You're talking about the Bonifacio Naval Station?
The naval station,
Which else?
and also the Navy land just in front of it.
Okay.
Because in December, there's the Modernization Act of the Armed Forces allows BCDA to be the disposition entity of the Armed Forces for all lands across the country. So we could develop military lands in Bukidnon, in all parts of the country.
Wow.
But in Fort Bonifacio, because of the real estate market, it's in the upswing. So we want to take advantage of that by disposing the land when the market is so good.
So the Navy will really be out of Fort Bonifacio completely, I mean, as per the plan of BCDA. What about the Army? The Army has shrunk, the Army reservation has shrunk a lot. Can we expect it to shrink even further?
Yeah, well, we'll look into that also because we need the proper and best utilization of military lands. So what we want our AFP to have is a long-term investment in infrastructure. So they must be able to develop a beautiful camp, a camp that would really they'll be very proud of, not like a squatter or something.
Of course.
So if we are going to invest in facilities of our armed forces, we really want it to be very modern, that our soldiers will be very proud of. We want to treat our soldiers with dignity and honor, befitting their uniform and their rank and the service that they give to our country. So if they have to have a camp, it must be a camp that they could really be very proud of. It's efficient, it's secure, and it provides all the resources that they need. So, but currently, because of the commercialization and urbanization in that area, it may not be a good use anymore. So they could probably retain some areas for administrative offices, but for a main camp, I don't think there's a need for a main camp
in the city.
Yes,
that's true.
Yes, so
true.
What we need is the headquarters, just like a Pentagon-like headquarters. Well, you could bring all the service commanders in one building, because it's a matter of efficiency also.
Yes, of course.
So if you have a command conference, if the chief of staff calls for a command conference,
in the capital, yes,
it's in one complex.
Yes,
so
yes.
They don't need to fly the chief of staff from somewhere, which also drains the resources of our armed forces. When in fact they could be in one building, housed in a secure complex, and then they just call each other and then come up with a meeting in the conference room. So that kind of efficiency.
Excellent. Attorney, unfortunately, we run out of time. I want to talk about Camp John Hay, pero our time has run out, unfortunately.
Okay.
But in the future, I mean, as this issue with John Hay also develops, we will definitely talk about Camp John Hay. I mean, so this is a place close to many Filipinos' hearts because it is the best place to spend time in Baguio.
Yes. But let me know if you want.
Attorney, before we go, you want to say something to the viewers?
Well, at first, I'd like to thank you, buddy, for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to speak to our people about these issues of national interest. And I would like to assure our people, particularly our armed forces, that what we do in BCDA is for your interest. And we know that it's a difficult process. There are a lot of challenges that would be thrust against us even. And we'll be maligned, will be a lot of things that will even be sued. But we will move on because we know how important it is for our country, and particularly for armed forces. Our armed forces, particularly now in the midst of challenges that they face, they need all our support. I think every Filipino, every patriotic Filipino must put our armed forces in their hearts. That's the only way we could reform the armed forces and really be proud of the soldiers that we have.
Attorney Casanova, maraming pong salamat. Thank you very much for coming to the show, and congratulations on a good job at BCDA.
Thank you very
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So guys, I hope you enjoyed tonight's show and are more enlightened about the issues concerning SM Aura in Taguig and BCDA. Join us again next week here on the show where we talk about what matters to you, because you guys matter the most. I'll see you next week.